3, the digestive system. And the function of the digestive system is to take in food, break it down into nutrient molecules. Then those nutrient molecules have to be absorbed into the bloodstream. And then we also, as you know, generate waste in the digestive system, but this is not waste that we've made inside our body. This is the materials that we didn't use during digestion, and those are removed by the digestive system. So the organs that are going to fall into two groups, the first being the alimentary canal or the gastrointestinal, or often called the GI tract, sometimes referred to as the gut. It is a continuous muscular tube that runs from the mouth to the anus. Its job is to digest food, at least in the first part. It breaks the food down into smaller and smaller fragments, starting with your teeth and ending up with the chemical monomers that build organisms, carbohydrates, lipids, amino acids, and nucleic acids. Those fragments are absorbed through, those chemicals are absorbed through the lining of the gastrointestinal tract into the blood. And then that blood has to deliver those, much like it went hand in hand with the respiratory system. The blood is required for a good use of the digestive system. The organs we're going to talk about are the mouth, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, and the anus. That makes up the tube. And the other set of organs are the accessory organs. And those would include the things that are there to help that alimentary canal. So that would be the teeth, the tongue, the gallbladder, and some other digestive glands that produce secretions that are going to help break down foodstuffs into those individual monomers. And those would be our salivary glands, the liver, and the pancreas. So here it is highlighted. That digestive process involves 6 essential activities. First of all, ingesting. You cannot get nutrients from food if you do not take the food into your body. So you have to eat it to get it. Propulsion. You have to move that food through the alimentary canal. That will start with swallowing, and then most of the movement through beyond that point is going to be a process called peristalsis, which propels food forward through the alimentary canal using alternating waves of contraction and relaxation. So in peristalsis, we can constrict one part of the tube, and then by contracting the muscle, move that food through. And if this is in the esophagus, for example, this would be called a bolus. The bolus would move forward, you constrict behind it, and the bolus continues to move forward. There is going on at the same time another process called segmentation, in which you alternate where these contractions occur, and that has the effect of mixing this bolus with parts of this bolus, and that helps mix the food, break it down mechanically, and allows for some peristalsis, some propulsion to occur. So both peristalsis and segmentation are important parts of moving foodstuff through the GI tract. The digestive tract also involves mechanical breakdown. So after you've ingested it and started moving it through, you've got to break it down. That starts with a mechanical process, chewing. Chewing is taking a piece of food and making it into smaller pieces of food. That also happens when also helps mix the food with saliva. We'll see saliva is involved in a little bit of digestion. It also churns the food in the stomach, and segmentation is going to happen. Digestion is breaking things down even further. It's catabolic chemical reactions that involve enzymes breaking down those complex food molecules into their chemical building blocks. And again, those are generally carbohydrates, lipids, and amino acids. We could include nucleic acids, but we don't get a lot of nucleic acids from digestion. Once it's broken down into those monomers, or small fragments as far as lipids go, it has to be absorbed, and that involves the movement of the material from inside the lumen of the gastrointestinal tract to the blood, or to lymph. And then the elimination of the things we didn't use in digestion are in the form of feces, and that process is called defecation. So we have ingestion, mechanical breakdown, propulsion, digestion, absorption, and defecation from one end of this continuous tube to the other end of the continuous tube. So let's see how that's organized first. The peritoneum is a serous membranes of the abdominal cavity that have, as all serous membranes, a visceral and parietal layer. The visceral peritoneum is on the external surface of most of the digestive organs. The parietal peritoneum is the membrane that's on the body wall. The space between it is filled with serous fluid, and that fluid, as usual, helps to lubricate the organs so that they are, when they are moving around in the process of doing what they do so with less friction. The mesentery is also a double layer of the peritoneum, but its layers are fused back to back. It extends from the body wall to the digestive organs, and it's going to provide a route for blood vessels, lymphatics, and nerves. And it also helps to hold the organs in place, and it is where we store fat. There are intraperitoneal or peritoneal organs that are within the peritoneum. And then there are retroperitoneal organs that are outside or behind the peritoneum. Most of the pancreas is retroperitoneal. The duodenum and parts of the large intestines are retroperitoneal. The rest are generally peritoneal organs. And those are mapped out here. And again, I would recommend that you look at figure 23.4 and check it out for yourself. Peritonitis is an inflammation of the peritoneum. It can be caused by abdominal wounds, particularly piercing abdominal wounds. It can also be from perforating ulcers or from a ruptured appendix. And in this case, the peritoneal coverings are going to stick together. That helps to localize the infection, but this is a serious condition. It can be dangerous and lethal if it becomes widespread. Generally requires removal of the debris and large doses of strong antibiotics. The digestive organs all have the same 4 basic layers, and we often refer to layers as tunics. These would include the mucosa, the submucosa, the muscularis externa, and the serosa. The mucosa is tunic that lines the lumen, so this is the innermost layer. Its functions, different layers perform one or all 3 of these: secretes mucus, absorbs digestive enzymes, hormones, absorbs end products, protects against infectious disease. So different, when they say different layers of this, they mean different parts of the GI tract. Some are more important in secreting, others are more important in absorption. They're all going to be involved in protecting against infectious disease. It's made up of 3 sublayers, and that would be epithelium, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosae. That epithelium is columnar epithelium, contains mucus-secreting cells in most of the tract. However, in the mouth, the esophagus, and the anus, where we have more friction, more loss of cells, that would be stratified squamous epithelium. It secretes mucus. Mucus protects the digestive organs themselves from the enzymes that are breaking down food, because our organs and food are made of the same things. It also helps to ease the passage of food. A lot of them secrete enzymes and hormones, particularly when we get to the stomach and the small intestines. The lamina propria is made up of loose areolar connective tissue. It has a rich blood supply of capillaries that is needed to nourish and also for absorbing materials. It has lymphoid follicles that help defend against microorganisms, and those follicles are part of the MALT, or mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue, that we talked about when we talked about the immune system. And the muscularis mucosae is smooth muscle that helps to produce the local movements of the mucosa. is shown here in a very nice artist rendering. And I would recommend that you take a good look at that and all the figures in your text as you are reading. The submucosa consists of areolar connective tissue. It has blood vessels and lymphatic vessels. There are also lymphoid follicles, submucosal nerve plexi, and that are going to be surrounding the GI tract tissues. It has an abundant amount of elastic tissue, and that helps the organs to regain their shape after storing large meals. The muscularis externa is the muscle layer responsible for the processes we talked about earlier, segmentation and peristalsis. They have an inner circular layer of muscle and outer longitudinal layers. So that circular layer is the part that closes off behind the in the throat. It would be called a bolus or whatever it is wherever we are. That prevents moving backwards, and then the longitudinal muscles, as they contract, push food forward, much like you would push frosting out of a frosting dispenser if you were doing a cake. The serosa is the outermost layer. It's made up of visceral peritoneum. It's formed from areolar connective tissue covered with mesothelium, which is a single layer of squamous epithelium in most organs. It's replaced by a more fibrous connective tissue layer called adventitia in the esophagus, and here this is a dense connective tissue that holds the esophagus to the surrounding structures. Retroperitoneal organs are going to have both adventitia and a serosa. The blood comes from the splenic circulation, which would include arteries that branch off the aorta, serving the digestive organs. The major ones would be the hepatic, the splenic, and the left gastric arteries, as well as the inferior and superior mesenteric arteries. We also have a special circulation here called the hepatic portal circulation, which is a portal circulation, meaning that blood will go from arterial to capillary, back to arterial, and then make its way back to the venous return. And that's going to be very important for processing food. We'll see more of that when we talk about the liver, because this circulation helps deliver the blood to the liver for the processing that occurs in the liver. All right, we are going to finish up this first segment with how do we control the digestive system. Turns out that the digestive system is got its own nervous system and has a lot of its own endocrine system. So the enteric nervous system is called the gut brain by some. It has actually more neurons in it than the spinal cord does. The gut brain is made up of the enteric neurons, and they are communicating extensively with one another. It is a major nerve supply to the GI tract that controls motility. And here are those neurons lit up in green to blue. They make up the bulk of two main interconnecting intrinsic nerve plexuses. They are the submucosal nerve plexus, which regulates glands and smooth muscle in the mucosa, and the myenteric nerve plexus, which controls the GI tract mobility. So my is muscle. That should give you an idea of what it's controlling. It participates in both short and long reflex arcs. Short reflexes are mediated by the enteric nerve plexus, the gut brain, which respond to stimuli within the GI tract. Long reflexes respond to stimuli that come from outside the gut, such as the autonomic nervous system. And in this case, the parasympathetic system tends to enhance digestive processes. Remember, that's where we're rest and relaxing. And the sympathetic system inhibits digestion, because if you have a belly full of food and you use your resources to digest that food while you are being chased by predators, it won't do you any good to digest that food if you never get a chance to. So parasympathetic enhances the digestive process. Sympathetic, fight or flight, inhibits digestion. And these are mapped out here. We have external stimuli that would include sight, smell, taste, even the thought of food, acting on the central nervous system. And we have also chemoreceptors, osmoreceptors, mechanical receptors that respond to internal stimuli, changes in GI tract stretch and the lumen pH, nutrients presence, or solute concentrations. All of these work on the central nervous system. And these internal responses also work on the local gut brain itself, leading to the smooth muscles and glands going through the process of digestion, which would mean changing contractility or secretion of activities. So these collectively would be the short reflexes, while this would be the long. Digestive activity is provoked by a wide range of both mechanical and chemical stimuli. There are receptors located in the walls of the GI tract organs. They respond to things such as stretch, changes in osmolarity, changes in pH, the substrate molecules for enzymes, and the end products of digestions will have an effect. The effectors of the digestive activity are going to be smooth muscles and glands. And when they are stimulated, the receptors initiate reflexes that stimulate smooth muscle to mix and move the contents of the lumen. And there are also reflexes that can activate or inhibit digestive glands to secrete digestive juices, which are going to break down materials. They're enzymes that break down materials, or hormones that will go back and regulate motility. And that will be based on the type of materials that we find in the digestive tract at any given point. So the neurons, either intrinsic or extrinsic, and the hormones that control digestive activity. We have intrinsic neurons involving the short reflexes, that would be the enteric nervous system, and extrinsic controls that involve the long reflexes, that would be the autonomic nervous system. Hormones from cells in the stomach, small intestine, stimulate target cells in the same or different organs, and those will secrete or contract depending on the organ. And I will hold it there and come back with the next show about functional anatomy of the digestive system.